Welcome to the WolfeWorks Wolfen YouTube channel. This channel serves as an archive of Mark Wolfe's creative works. Legal stuff. All musical content is publicly available for private use if it is correctly cited and referenced without advance permission. Just leave a comment. All musical content is available for commercial use for a one-time fee if permission is granted in writing by the author in advance and is correctly cited and referenced. Contact the author at wolfeworks@icloud.com. WolfeWorks has been a working trademark since 1984. Wolfen has been a working trademark since 1988. Both are still in use. WolfeWorks Wolfen timeline. Mark Wolfe was born in 1959 in Ballard, Seattle, Washington, to an upper-middle low-income family. He was a fairly normal kid with two younger sisters, Kim and Diane, who loved to play in Salmon Bay Park across the street from the home they lived in with their parents and grandmother, Catherine. His two uncles, William and Stephen, were actors, and their dad, Leo, was an accomplished musician. Bill built a speaker and amp for his turntable and played the Beatles' UK I Want to Hold Your Hand for Mark's family in 1963. From that moment on, Mark knew what he wanted to do. Not just the music but also the sound and mix. Leo always included Mark's family in all the musicians' union picnics and music events and allowed young Mark to make noise on his 9-foot grand piano. Mark and his sisters attended Whittier, James Monroe Junior High, and Ballard High School. Mark learned to play guitar, piano, and bass and enjoyed reading comic, sci-fi, mythology, philosophy, and psychology books. Mark enjoyed learning about world belief systems and native cultures. By 1968, Mark had locked in his role models and social alignments. He worked as a paperboy to purchase musical instruments and began playing in bands. He spent the majority of his time practicing, listening, and learning to play a wide range of instruments by ear. In the 1970s, Mark had found his initial musical influences but would continue to explore and dive deep into all genres. If it was unique, innovative, the root of a genre or artist, Mark studied it. In the 5th grade, MSWC, Mark, Steve Katz-Andres, David Choate, David Minton, and Ross Clemens won the talent show. In the 6th grade, Mark began a theatrical stage crafts and light tech internships at the Poncho Theater and played bass in the Bend River Band and Emit Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Through junior high, Rose Heath, Mark, Ron Stubbs, Randy Hull, and Demetri K. played several gigs in James Monroe Junior High School talent shows. Mark bought a used combo organ and borrowed an Electrocomp EML 200. This was his first synth and began Mark's fruition of sound design and programming. Later he had the good fortune to play a few gigs with the Mixed Emotions, Dan, Joe, Ken, Stanley, Raymond, and all the Mainers, and Dean Morley. At Ballard, Mark ran sound for Ariel, Craig Rieland, Daryl Vernon, Dave Greenberg, Bob Nicholson, and Randy Hull, and bought his first real keyboard rig. He woodshed progressive rock with Vale Johnson, Michael Mason, and Scott Smith. Ariel morphed into Brat, Dave Greenberg, Randy Hull, Wendy Lee, Daryl Vernon, Mark Wolfe, and Mike Willison, managed by photographer Tim Orden, and gigged through Unicam and the GMA. After Brat, Mark joined Hussey, Zadie Cole, George Goheen, Gordy Badinger, and Lars, and gigged through Far West. After Hussey, Mark joined Dillinger for one tour, Joe Brown, Steve Erickson, Bruce Malmberg, and Lloyd Poole, and gigged through GMA. After Dillinger, Mark was privileged to collaborate with David Gardner, Craig Olofsson, and Dave Mallet on an original 3-album project with Mass, recording at Holden Hamilton and Roberts, adding a Cremar DS2 to his rig. After Mass, Mark played with The Line and the Doug Roberge Band. Doug, Brian, and Tim Roberge, Craig Olofsson, and Journey Clover started WolfeWorks and attended NSCC toward a CS degree. After marrying and becoming a father, Mark moved to his wife's hometown and was hired as music director of the Brian Clark Show at the Westward Ho Casino. He added a Drumulator, DX7, and SH101 to his rig. After the Brian Clark Show, Mark worked at Mahoney's Pro Music and Drum Shop in PA sales, backline, and SR rentals, and installs. Was an on-call audio engineer, session, and gig musician. Recorded Wolfen 1, 2, and 3. Mark was privileged to work with drummer Kevin Kelly to co-compose and record Wolfen 3. During this time, Mark won a regional Addy for his sound design and original musical theme. At the Anaheim NAMM, Mark was introduced to Ray Kurzweil, Bob Moog, and Keith Emerson to discuss synthesizer design in the digital age for about 45 minutes until Carl Palmer drug Emerson off. Mark moved back to Seattle to raise his children as a single father, continuing to program software for video games, synths, and sequencers, working as an on-call audio engineer, gig musician, and various jobs. Mark attended EDCC to complete his CS degree, after which he was hired by Microsoft as an SDE. Once at Microsoft, Mark purchased a home for himself and his daughters and designed and built his studio. Working at Microsoft allowed Mark to splurge on his daughters and pay off his student loans. Once the studio was built, Mark added more keyboards to his rig, a backline for the studio, and recorded Wolfen 4 and 5. Mark hosted jams in his studio and outdoor rib burn-off concerts on his property and played in the Blues Explorer and Jester's garage bands before retiring from Microsoft and moving to Oakville. Mark purchased and restored the historic 1908 Oakville Post Office building, turning it into Papa Wolf's stage door smokehouse and music venue with help from friends. It closed for good at the end of 2019. Mark moved into an RV in Westport. In COVID-19 isolation he attended the University of Phoenix online for his BS and MS in psychology. He downsized his rig to a Phantom 6 to create new Wolfen music. Enjoy.